there's been this problem with Houston and Austin for too long, I think, and we shouldn't be fighting Austin. Now, that's not to suggest we roll over and play dead, but we need to work together. City of Houston is the largest city in our state, and it should be able to work cooperatively with Austin. And that's one thing I think I bring to the table is I can text the lieutenant governor, or I can call the AG as an example, to get some help for our city.
Some people who are Democrats who are inclined not to agree with the policies of Abbott and many things about Paxton, might say, I don't want him because of that reason. He's too close to those guys, and I don't like the way they run government. What would you say to those people?
First, I would say I'm a lawyer. Okay, so I'm hired. First off, I had a lot of my Democrat lawyer friends, which, as you probably would expect, there's a lot of Democrat lawyers who do personal injury. That's the party that they identify with and support financially, who criticized me roundly. I can't believe you're representing Ken Paxton. I can't believe, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is the most historic trial in Texas history. This is the Super Bowl of trials for a lawyer. Like I said, when I was in the Marines, I didn't just want to be an infantry officer. I wanted to be a recon officer. I wanted to be the top of the top. And this was the top of the top case. And for me, I don't care what party you're in, it would be an honor to be involved in it. When I first walked into the Senate chamber, I went over to Dick DeGuerin and I said, it's an honor to be here with you. First I asked him, did you really go into the Davidian compound? Because I'd just watched that documentary. He said, oh yeah, and so, I don't think that you can, I don't think it's fair to somebody to say, well, he represented Paxton, so he's everything Paxton is. That's not how it works. I mean, there's lawyers every day that defend, people accused of murder and all kinds of nasty things. Nobody does that with them. I'm not, that's what I said to my friends, like, are you serious? You represent people on death row. And I applaud you for that. I laud you for that. I pat you on the back for that, because that's what being a lawyer is. And then you turn right around and criticize me because of who I representing. I don't think that's fair.
You felt it in the fiber of your being. I remember those words. They stuck with you. The fiber of your being. You believed that Ken Paxton was.
I still do. And let me tell you why. Because I saw the evidence. Now, you may have thoughts about Ken Paxton, and you're entitled to that. But I went into that with no thoughts about Ken Paxton. Like, literally didn't know him, had never met him. I'd seen him one time at an Aggie game. I got hired because somebody texted somebody and said, you should get Tony Buzbee, because I'd represented Rick Perry. And I didn't know him from Adam. I mean, I knew what he looked like. I knew who he was. I didn't know that he had sued the federal government 17 or 40 or whatever the number is. I didn't know any of that. But what I did know is I put my eyes on every piece of paper they produced, every piece of paper, and I know the law. And I know factually what they could prove and what they could not prove. And they could not prove a case against him, and that's what I meant. And I stand by that. And every night when I woke up, because poor Colby, who we drove over here together, would literally spend all night long, him and Delchifino, Wayne Delchifino's son, who works for me, and Ruth Rivera, who also works with me, would spend all night from 4:30 in the afternoon when they would dump these documents on us, all night until the next morning. I'd wake up at 4, and I would text Colby. I'd say, is there anything in there? Anything worth noting? Nothing, boss. He said, nothing, boss. I didn't know. I kept thinking, surely Rusty Hardin has something up his sleeve. Surely they must have something. And they didn't have anything. Now, you may have watched the trial and said, guilty, guilty. I'm looking at it from a point of view of a lawyer with the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. They couldn't make the case. They couldn't. And I don't think they did. And I stand by exactly what I said. Because in any criminal court, I stand by this, any criminal court in the country, first off, most of those articles would have been dismissed because they were written in such a way that they could never be proven. And the ones that would not have been dismissed, they didn't have the evidence for it. So, I know we look at things from a different point of view, and that's something as a lawyer I understand. I mean, I do voir dires where you go and you talk to the potential jurors and you try to figure out, here's where they stand, here's how they look at life. I looked at it from a point of view of a lawyer. They did not make the case.
Not just a lawyer. I mean, you understood the jury better than the other side. the other side was
I knew the case I was
arguing.
trying.
Yeah.
I knew what case I
The other
was
side was arguing
trying.
like they were in a courtroom.
I knew what case I was trying. And some of the people on my team didn't even understand the case we were trying. But I knew from the beginning. That's one thing, in law school I learned very quickly is who is the decision maker? Who do I need to persuade? It's not the judge. It's not the court reporter. It's not the bailiff. It's only those 12 people sitting right over there. And and in this case, in the political case, it was the public. It was the people watching every day that were going to be influencers of the 6 or 8 swing, what I considered to be the swing senators in that chamber. And they certainly were listening, but they were getting feedback, and so, that was the case I was making. The Dick DeGuerin and Rusty Hardin, I don't know what case they were making. And they never put a coherent case together until maybe at the very end when Representative Murr made his closing. It was far too late. The case was long over by then. The case was over, in my view, when Mateer was cross-examined. I think that's when they started to take on water. And then when Mitch Little cross-examined Ryan Vassar, I think that was the end of that case. You could just feel in the chamber, you could just feel the air. It just changed. Everything changed. And I think that's what changed. And I know y'all will never agree with this, but I think that's what changed the lieutenant governor's mind. I think and you won't believe it, but I can just tell you, because I had bench conference after bench conference with him, and he started out, it was a different judge starting out than it was after those 2 witnesses. And you could just see the difference. And like the senator behind me, I think his name is Gutierrez, you could see him change. He got madder and madder as he sat back there. And you could see some of the other senators that their demeanor changed. Some of the ones that were really wanting a conviction, they became more and more unhappy as the case progressed. Because, I'll go to my grave believing that there was not a foregone conclusion in that case. That if they would have come with the evidence, then there could have been a conviction. They didn't have it.
Trump says he did it.
Well, success has many fathers, as they say. And maybe I'm taking credit, I don't know, but I did have a role in it. And it was, I don't know if there'll be another case like that. It was pretty amazing.
What comes next afterwards? Didn't they say they were gonna, continue legal action outside of everything wrapping up now, I think?
Well, the 4, you may remember the 4 articles of impeachment that related to the securities case were held in abeyance. Mm-hmm. And then Senator Birdwell stood up and moved to dismiss those. Mm-hmm. And then there was some talk that there was a grand jury that had been convened, a federal grand jury that's supposedly talking to witnesses. But right. I would suggest that they were watching, whoever's they, mm-hmm. and saw Mateer testify, and saw Vassar testify, and saw Wicker testify. And I think Wicker had already spoken to obviously they had all the so-called whistleblowers had talked to the FBI previously. I think Wicker had as well. And I think if I'm sitting there as a federal prosecutor and I'm watching that, and I would say I will never get a conviction on that. Not with those witnesses. Never.